In the early 2000s, people trusted their credit cards completely. They used them every day at grocery stores, malls, restaurants, gas stations, and hotels. The machine beeped, the receipt printed, and life moved on. Most customers believed their information was safe because banks promised protection and companies claimed they had strong security systems. No one imagined that their card numbers could be stolen silently during an ordinary purchase. That's where Albert Gonzalez comes in, who was secretly building one of the largest cyber theft operations in American history. And by the time federal authorities stopped him, more than 160 million credit and debit card numbers had been stolen through attacks connected to him and his team. This was not a small mistake by one store. This was not one lucky hack. This was a long, organized operation that targeted some of the largest retail and payment companies in the country. But long before the number 160 million became a headline, there was just a kid in Miami who preferred computers over almost everything else. Albert Gonzalez grew up in Florida in what appeared to be a normal household. He was not loud or aggressive. He was the kind of kid who stayed indoors and focused deeply on whatever caught his interest. While other teenagers spent their time outside, he was often in front of a computer, trying to understand how systems worked. People who knew him described him as intelligent and patient. He had a strong memory and learned technical things quickly. Once, he understood how something functioned. He wanted to know how it could fail. He enjoyed solving problems and recognizing patterns. He could sit for hours trying to figure out a single issue without losing focus. But curiosity does not always remain harmless. By the time he reached his early 20s, that curiosity had grown into something much larger. As the internet expanded in the late 1990s, underground communities began forming in hidden corners of the web. These were not public websites. They were private chat rooms, encrypted forums, and invitation-only message boards where people discussed system vulnerabilities, shared hacking tools, and sometimes traded stolen information. Albert did not enter this world as a mastermind. He entered it quietly. At first, he observed, he learned the language used in these communities. He studied how experienced members talked about network weaknesses and security flaws. He experimented with small intrusions, testing what he had learned and refining his technical skills. In these circles, reputation mattered. Skill mattered. If someone could demonstrate technical ability, others noticed. Over time, Albert began building a name for himself. He showed that he understood how networks were structured, how data moved across servers, and where security mistakes were commonly made. His patience and attention to detail earned him trust. He became associated with online criminal marketplaces, including a group known as Shadow Crew. These platforms functioned like black market businesses. Members bought and sold stolen credit card numbers, fake identification documents, and other fraudulent services. The operations were organized. There were roles, responsibilities, and systems in place. Through these networks, Albert connected with hackers across the United States and in Eastern Europe. He learned how stolen card data was collected, verified, packaged, and resold. He saw how criminals routed their activity through multiple servers to avoid detection. He understood not just how to break into systems, but how to profit from the data once it was taken. This was no longer simple experimentation. It was structured cybercrime. But in 2003, something interesting happened. Albert was arrested for credit card fraud. He faced serious prison time, but instead of fighting the charges, he made a deal with the United States Secret Service. He agreed to become a confidential informant. His job was to help agents understand online hacking groups and identify other criminals. He attended meetings and gave information about fraud operations. For a period of time, he appeared to be helping law enforcement. However, while he was working as an informant, he was also planning a much larger operation of his own. Around 2005, Gonzalez and a small group began focusing on major retail companies. They were no longer interested in stealing small numbers of cards from individuals. They wanted access to systems that handled millions of transactions every day. They began searching for weaknesses in wireless networks used by stores. At that time, Many retailers used outdated wireless security systems. Some relied on weak encryption that could be broken. In other cases, default passwords were never changed. Payment systems were sometimes connected to the same network as other store systems without strong separation. Gonzalez and his team would scan for weak wireless signals near store locations. Once they identified a vulnerable network, they entered it. After gaining access, they slowly moved deeper into the company's internal systems. They studied how payment data traveled across servers. Then they installed software that secretly recorded credit card data as it moved through the network. One of the first major victims was TJX Companies, the parent company of stores, such as TJ Maxx and Marshalls. The hackers remained inside the system for months before detection. Millions of card numbers were taken. When the breach became public in 2007, it was described as one of the largest retail data breaches in history at that time. Customers were shocked, and the company faced lawsuits and financial losses. But the operation did not stop. Gonzalez and his group also targeted Heartland Payment Systems, one of the largest payment processors in the world. Heartland handled transactions for thousands of businesses. When investigators later revealed the scale of the breach, it showed that more than 100 million card numbers had been exposed through that single attack. Other companies were also affected, including Hannaford Supermarket Systems and 7-Eleven. When all the cases were combined, the total number of stolen card numbers exceeded 160 million. While these attacks were happening, Gonzalez continued to cooperate with federal authorities in other investigations. This made the case even more disturbing. He understood how investigators tracked hackers because he had helped them before. He knew what mistakes led to arrest. He used that knowledge to protect himself. His lifestyle changed as the profits grew. He rented expensive apartments and spent large amounts of cash. He purchased luxury items and traveled frequently. Investigators later found that he had hidden over $1 million in cash in his parents' backyard. Banks began noticing rising fraud reports. Customers complained about unauthorized charges. Companies launched internal investigations, but many struggled to see the full picture. Breaches often remained undetected for months. Federal agents started comparing cases. They saw similar methods used in different companies. They found patterns in the way networks were entered and how data was removed. Digital evidence began linking the incidents together. Investigators traced rented servers, reviewed online chat records, and followed financial trails. Slowly, the evidence pointed back to Albert Gonzalez and his associates. Between 2008 and 2009, members of the group were arrested. Servers were seized, and large amounts of stolen data were recovered. Finally, Gonzalez himself was arrested and charged in multiple federal cases involving tens of millions of stolen card numbers. In 2010, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The judge described the crimes as extremely serious because of the scale and impact. Millions of consumers were affected. Banks were forced to cancel and reissue cards. Companies paid large settlements. Trust in retail security was damaged. Conclusion: the case led to significant changes in the industry. Companies strengthened wireless security. Stronger encryption became standard. Intrusion detection systems improved. Payment card security rules were enforced more strictly. At its core, the case showed something simple but important. Large companies believed their systems were secure, but weaknesses existed. Albert Gonzalez did not invent advanced technology. He found gaps in security and used them again and again. More than 160 million card numbers were stolen. Behind each number was a real person who believed their transaction was safe. For years, the theft happened quietly in the background, until investigators uncovered the man who had been watching it all along. This case remains one of the clearest examples of how digital trust can collapse when security is ignored. It also reveals how someone trusted as an informant could simultaneously build one of the largest cybercrime operations in history, and that is what made the case truly shocking. And even in 2026, credit card fraud still exists, but the methods have changed. Instead of breaking into store networks, criminals now use phishing emails, fake banking websites, data breaches, SIM swap attacks, and malware that captures payment details without the victim realizing it. So here are some measures through which you can protect yourself from such fraud. Use virtual credit cards for online purchases. It reduces risk as each transaction generates a temporary number. Enabling instant transaction alerts through banking apps allows suspicious activity to be detected within seconds. Two-factor authentication should be enabled on every financial account. Strong, unique passwords are essential. Avoid entering card details on unknown websites and avoid making financial transactions on public Wi-Fi networks. Regularly checking bank statements, even for small charges. Freeze your credit card if you are using it. It helps prevent criminals from applying for loans in your name. Most major U.S. credit bureaus allow this for free. And if you want to know how one man fooled the FBI for 15 years and still escaped, watch this video.